So in this video I'm just going to outline 5 quick reasons why I would choose the Realme GT2 over the iPhone 13, or even over newer iPhones for that matter. So bearing in mind this review is from the perspective of a fairly non-technical user. I've been using both phones on a daily basis, the Realme as my personal phone and the iPhone as my work phone. So reason number 1 is design. So we'll start with the Realme. So when looking at the Realme design, moving from the display over to the edges, we can see that there is this tapered design as we go from display to edge, and that theme continues going from the edge to the back of the phone. That tapered design does give the phone, in my opinion, the illusion of being slimmer than what it actually is, at least from the side profile. By comparison, the iPhone 13 design, again, nothing wrong with that. It's been standard Apple design that we've seen from the iPhone 12 with the squared off edges. Quite comfortable to hold, not too heavy as well. Moving along to the back of the iPhone. So on the back of the iPhone 13 we do have the glossy display. This can be somewhat prone to picking up fingerprints, as many of you may be aware. Mostly that's a moot point because most people will use the phone in a case, just as I have. But it is just something to be aware of nonetheless. That does lead me on to reason number 2, which is durability. So in terms of the iPhone, that does seem to have held up a little bit less well than the Realme in terms of picking up marks, scuffs and scratches over those 3 years. This may not be picked up on the camera, but there are just a few small scratches, scuffs and marks along the back glass, despite being used in the case for 3 years. More or less on a weekly basis, I have removed both phones from the case and cleaned the case just to try to get out any debris that might have built up. But despite that, we still have some degradation on the camera lenses or along the edges of them on the iPhone. Of course, these aren't in the case. But if we compare that to the Realme, this does appear to have held up somewhat better in that regard. So we can see, of course, the matte finish on the back. I cannot pick up any scratches or marks on that. Looks like it's held up pretty well. Similarly, the edges of the phone as well. Seems to be in more or less pristine condition here. The camera I'm using may not focus on this, but there are a couple of minor nicks just along the lower edge of the camera on the Realme. But again, a much lesser extent than what we would see on the iPhone. So that leads me on to point number 3, or reason number 3. Reason number 3 is the display. So on the Realme, we've got a 6.7-inch display, very quick Face ID. And on the iPhone, we've got the 6.1-inch display. We have Face ID on that as well, but it doesn't seem to be working quite as quickly as it did before. May need to reset that. Other point I'd make as well on the iPhone, we have the famous notch, which you've been familiar with since the iPhone 10. Incidentally, I do prefer the notch to the dynamic island on the newer models, so if I was to upgrade my work phone to a newer iPhone model, the pick of the bunch would be, for me, the 16E, for that reason alone. Moving on to the Realme, so we can see the Realme, no notch, and our front camera is, in my opinion, in the correct spot. Not sure why more manufacturers don't do that. If there is going to be a front camera that isn't being concealed on the phone, then I think that is the right spot forward, as it doesn't get in the way of any videos, unlike the dynamic island on the newer phones, or to a lesser extent the notch on the 13 or the 16E. Reason number 4 why the Realme is a winner for me is the battery and the charging. So the Realme, despite its thin profile, that does come with a 65 watt charger. The iPhone tops out at, I believe, 20 watts charging. So what that means in daily use is if you're running low on battery on the Realme, as I am now, I can typically connect it to the charger, give it a top up of between 50 and 20 minutes, and be good to go for the day. That's typically enough for between 60 to 70% charge. Charging the iPhone for the same amount of time would only give me only a small portion of the battery charge as well. Reason number 5 is user profiles. So this is a feature that we have on the Realme, where you can run multiple different user profiles, similar to what you'd find on a laptop. So in my case, I have 3 accounts and 1 guest. Each of those accounts can be configured to specify what permissions the user will have. So, for example, if you want to create specific accounts for family members or kids, then you can set the permissions accordingly on those accounts as well. So that's about it for now. As we can see, battery is running pretty low on both phones, so I need to run off to give both of them a charge. But thanks for watching. I hope this comparison helps someone. Also, I'd like to hear your opinions in the comments, so go ahead and drop a comment if you agree or if you disagree with anything I've said there. Or indeed, if there's any other phones that you would recommend, do let me know in the comments. Thanks once again everyone for watching. We'll see you again soon. Bye.